Reports circulating in Washington suggest that a group of Republican lawmakers are discussing the possibility of invoking Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution in response to recent executive actions by President Donald Trump. At this stage, there is no confirmed formal invocation. What exists are discussions, internal briefings, and heightened political tension. However, even discussion of the 25th Amendment is significant. It is not a symbolic gesture. It is a constitutional mechanism designed for extraordinary circumstances. Understanding the procedure and the broader implications requires separating speculation from structural reality. Section 1. What the 25th Amendment actually does. Section 4 of the amendment allows the Vice President and a majority of the Cabinet to declare that a president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office. If that declaration is submitted to congressional leadership, the Vice President immediately becomes acting president. If the president contests the declaration, Congress must vote. A two-thirds majority in both chambers is required to sustain removal. It is not a partisan vote threshold. It is an exceptionally high constitutional bar. Importantly, Congress alone cannot remove a president through Section 4. The Vice President and Cabinet are essential to initiating the process. Section 2. What triggered concern? According to multiple reports, concern among some lawmakers centers on a series of rapid executive directives involving potential reassessment of NATO funding commitments, review of cross-border infrastructure arrangements with Canada, preparation of contingency trade measures targeting Canadian agricultural and steel exports. None of these actions are inherently unconstitutional. Presidents possess broad authority in foreign policy and trade enforcement. However, the speed and scope of overlapping directives reportedly prompted internal briefings focused on national security and diplomatic stability. In Washington, silence from leadership can sometimes indicate internal review rather than immediate dismissal. That does not confirm a constitutional crisis, but it signals institutional caution. Section 3. The Canada factor. Any instability in U.S. executive authority has immediate international consequences, particularly for Canada. Canada is the United States' largest export market and closest defense partner. Supply chains are deeply integrated. Automotive production crosses borders multiple times. Energy grids interconnect. Agricultural contracts depend on predictable tariff structures. Prime Minister Mark Carney has built his reputation on financial stability and systemic risk management, drawing from experience at the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. Reports from Ottawa suggest contingency planning is underway, not as a political reaction, but as economic risk management. That preparation would be standard for any government facing potential volatility in its primary economic partner. Section 4. The Vice President's role. The constitutional fulcrum is the Vice President. Without vice presidential initiation, no Section 4 process begins. If initiated, authority transfers immediately. The President can contest. Congress has 21 days to vote. The political cost of initiating such a process would be historic. The political cost of declining to act, if instability escalated, would also be historic. That is the structural dilemma. Section 5. Market and alliance sensitivity. Financial markets do not respond only to outcomes. They respond to uncertainty. If executive authority appears unstable, several areas become sensitive. Defense coordination within NATO, Arctic security planning, cross-border trade guarantees, currency markets, energy flows. Even the perception of unpredictability can influence risk premiums. This is not panic. It is pricing of probability. Allies such as Canada prepare for continuity under either scenario, whether authority remains unchanged or shifts temporarily. Section 6. Political momentum versus constitutional threshold. Public discussion of the 25th Amendment does not equal removal. For removal to occur, the Vice President and Cabinet must initiate. The President may contest. Two-thirds of both chambers must sustain the action. That threshold has never been successfully crossed under Section 4 in U.S. history. The number of lawmakers publicly discussing the mechanism matters politically, but legally the Cabinet alignment matters more. Momentum in constitutional processes often builds quietly through consultations, not public confrontation. Section 7. The broader implication. Even credible discussion of Section 4 alters the operating environment of a presidency. Every executive action becomes more scrutinized. Every international negotiation becomes more sensitive. Allies seek reassurance of continuity. If the process is never formally triggered, the episode may still leave a lasting institutional imprint. Future administrations would operate knowing that capacity reviews are not unthinkable. That alone changes the balance between executive authority and cabinet responsibility. Final assessment. At this moment, there is no confirmed invocation. There is internal review and political tension. The vice president holds the decisive procedural authority. Congress alone cannot remove the president under Section 4. Canada and other allies are prudently modeling risk scenarios. This situation is less about dramatic confrontation and more about institutional calculation. The coming days will determine whether this remains political signaling or evolves into formal constitutional action.